Hey, friends. Well, I can always tell I'm reading a good book when I show up to do my video post and I've got no idea what to talk about because it's like there are 15 different amazing insights that are all kind of coming through, and it's like an embarrassment of riches in terms of inspiration. But I think I can narrow it down. So I've been continuing to listen to The Scandal of God, and it's like it has this feeling. It's almost like some of the experiences I've had reading Sadhguru's books, where it's like a slow burn, and then it just starts to, like a rocket taking off. The thinking just gets so high powered. And what I was listening to most recently, just a little earlier today and yesterday, is a section where Alan talks about the notion of freedom, still the notion of freedom, and defining what that freedom means. And part of it is a search for a viable and effective and really resonant definition of freedom. And part of it is a critique of what has come to pass for freedom and the sort of substitutes for freedom that we latch onto in our society, in our particular American society, and in a lot of ways, this is kind of a pan-Western world affliction, because we have a kind of notion of autonomous freedom, egoic freedom, that's really not serving us. But where he went today that really struck me was he's talking about, on some level, the feeling of being in a body, the feeling of being an incarnate human being in the world. On some level, is intolerable to us. On some level, existing feels like a slight against our infinite nature. Now, I'm not saying this is consciously how very many of us probably feel, but I think that it actually is, perhaps, subconsciously how some of us feel. And it's almost like this background feeling that would be very difficult to acknowledge, because who among us is going to say, yeah, I wish I didn't have a body? Right? How likely are we to think that thought? I wish I didn't exist. All my problems, hey, I've noticed something about my problems. What they all have in common is that they all stem from the fact that I exist. I know what I need. I need to not exist. Right? Try to formulate that as a conscious thought makes almost no sense. It does make sense to feel, and I think this is sort of how I think it maybe happens in a lot of us. It does actually, I think it's entirely possible that many of us feel we can't not be connected to the essence of our being, which is infinite non-existence, the heart of consciousness, the core, the observing window through which we see the world is non-being, is consciousness itself. That's the window we're all looking out of onto everything, including ourselves, this body, mind, whatever. So, on some level, there's this weird dichotomy, a split between who we essentially feel we are and then all the manifestations of that, all the kind of actual in the world existent, the finite reflections of our infinite nature. And if that's going on within us, then the notion of freedom, I'm going into the side of the coin that is the critique of a kind of hyper-autonomous freedom. The feeling of freedom as either the ability to reject the body, transcend the body. Transcending the body is different than rejecting the body, but they get very quickly spun together. If we look at the various wisdom traditions, the various religious traditions, there's a kind of inherent distrust of the body, and there are all kinds of practices where we deny the needs of the body, deny the desires of the body. We sort of try to say, hey, body, you're kind of persona non grata here. What we're really after is our essence, so don't get in the way. Take a seat over here, maybe don't eat for a while, certainly don't have sex. Don't take too much of our focus. And out of that, we get 8 billion forms of repression, right? Self-imposed repression, externally imposed repression, repression from within factions and sects of religions, and repression across different belief boundaries and whatnot. But at the end of all that, if we kind of take that notion of our own of almost like resenting our limitations, and we back up a step off of that, the notion of a kind of hyper-autonomous freedom starts to kind of make sense, because our body is dependent. Our body is inextricably entwined with the rest of the world. It's inextricably entwined with all other bodies, with the planet, with all other species, with the air, the water, the soil, everything. We are that. We literally are. This body literally is the soil that some animal ate, or that I ate, some plant ate, and then I ingested the plant or the animal or whatever, and then this body got built out of planet stuff. Completely in and of the world. And if that condition is the sort of subconscious thing we're trying to get away from, then a freedom that promises us that we are the only reference point, that we as ourselves, this ego mind, can be liberated entirely on its own, starts to be attractive. And within that, I can just kind of select my beliefs. If I don't like the hard choices, if I don't think that it's worth wrestling with really difficult problems that have to do with the essentially communal nature of my existence, I don't have to. I can just say I don't need to do that. I want the freedom to be totally separated from that. And if I can amass enough money and enough resources and kind of set things up just so, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can get away from this pesky enmeshment in an essentially, it's not even just a community, it's not even a communal context. It's an embodied, completely entwined with all of existence kind of existence. So, where I think that where this is taking me, which I find really kind of fascinating, is what are the substrates? Like what's the background predisposition in human consciousness that makes it attractive to want to get out of the world, basically, to want to have a freedom that's out of that lets me ignore or banish or just not have to think about my relationships as much as possible. What is it in the nature of human existence that makes that attractive to me? And can I actually see that? Can I actually get myself to a place where I can observe that impulse? Because if I can observe that impulse, I'll have a moment before just acting on it, before my beliefs, before my mind wraps itself around beliefs that give me that kind of that out, that give me that escape from the intolerability of incarnation. Because by and large, those are fundamentalist beliefs. By and large, those are beliefs that are gonna close the doors on questions. They're gonna substitute fixed point answers for otherwise open spaces of potential doubt and inevitable, infinitely ongoing dialogue. And they're gonna limit me, and they're gonna limit the world. They're gonna limit others. They're gonna limit my capacity to continue growing. So I know, what I'm unpacking here is kind of subtle and hard to define. But what I'm really looking for is, if I can get in touch with this feeling that my body is somehow, it's not that I think my body is the obstacle, but I subconsciously feel that. I subconsciously feel the limitations of the body, the limitations of existence. I subconsciously have a kind of longing to transcend that. And then in the same way that many religious traditions have, I go about my own way of kind of repressing and subordinating that whole side of myself in favor of a kind of, me on my own vision of liberation and freedom, but that ultimately takes me out. It perverts my thinking about the nature of life. Why am I on earth? Why is my body here? What does it mean to exist as in a place where I'm inextricably entwined with all other beings? What is the nature of that? And as long as I'm subconsciously trying to banish or escape from that, I'm not really going to want to wrestle with those questions. Those questions aren't even going to interest me. I'm not even going to see them as relevant, because I'm going to be looking somewhere else and feeling like another whole direction is actually what's important. So, yeah, this is a big one, and I don't feel like I've kind of closed the loop on this yet. But what I listened to today sort of opened this door of like, okay, what's underneath my own sense of existence as a manifest human, and to what extent does that influence the beliefs I choose about freedom? What I got today, folks. Thanks for watching. All the love in the world. I appreciate you. Have a great day. See you soon.